According to Broncos insider Mike Klis, the Denver Broncos could still very much trade Albert Okwuegbunam. So according to Mike Klis, who does his nightly 9 News segment, Klis and Tell, he says that the Denver Broncos could still potentially be looking to trade tight end Albert Okwuegbunam. There's always been the thought in the back of everybody's mind that the main reason why he got so many looks in our preseason finale against the Los Angeles Rams is because the team was trying to showcase him for the 31 other teams out there and potentially give him an opportunity to increase his trade value. Now, according to Mike Klis, since the Denver Broncos elected to play Albert Okwuegbunam into the second half and even into the fourth quarter after he had such a big first half, that could be a heavy indication that the Denver Broncos were indeed looking to showcase him in that game. One example of this that happened recently, according to Mike Klis, was that he heard prior to the preseason game against the 49ers that San Francisco was going to play Trey Lance quite a bit in the second half in order to showcase him and potentially boost his trade value for the other 31 teams. Well, lo and behold, Trey Lance did indeed get traded to the Dallas Cowboys. So we could potentially be seeing another situation like this with Albert Okwuegbunam. The question then becomes, what would we fetch for him in a potential trade? I feel like the Denver Broncos could potentially net up to a 5th round pick for Albert Okwuegbunam. Maybe even a 4th if they were to maybe throw in like a 7th round pick or something like that to boost Albert Okwuegbunam just a little bit. Now, I know to some in Broncos country, a 5th round pick might not sound like a whole lot, but at the end of the day, that's about the highest you're going to get for Albert Okwuegbunam. Nobody's going to give up a 3rd round pick for him. He's such an unproven commodity. That would be a big gamble. And the only way I could see someone giving up a 4th round pick, which was Albert's original drafted round, that's the only way I could see that happening again is if the Denver Broncos maybe sent like a 7th round pick over or something like that. So at the end of the day, man, I just don't see us being able to net like a premium pick because a 3rd round pick is considered a top tier premium draft pick. I don't see us being able to net that kind of draft capital for Albert Okwuegbunam. We'd have to get something a little bit less than that. But given the fact that this team is still trying to acquire draft picks, that's another dart for us to potentially stack assets for the next season. Now, I understand that this would not be the most popular take in Broncos country. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it at all. I would much rather keep Albert Okwuegbunam if all we're going to get for him is a 5th round pick or something along those lines, because I feel like Sean Payton will be able to use him in some capacity with his size, his speed. So Sean Payton has showcased that he has the ability to utilize that talent. He did that in our final preseason game. And in the red zone especially, which is what Mike Klis noted here, that's where Albert Okwuegbunam could be a big weapon for us. We could have several big bodies in the red zone. Courtland Sutton, Albert Okwuegbunam, Greg Dulcich. Imagine that 3-headed monster as pass catchers in the red zone. That could be huge for us, having 3 guys who could go up and high point those 50-50 balls. Courtland Sutton's obviously a master at that. And then Albert Okwuegbunam and Greg Dulcich, they have the size to go out and box out smaller defenders. So that alone would make Albert Okwuegbunam a valuable skill set for this offense, even if he's not utilized in between the 20s. And I still feel like the Broncos will find a way to utilize Albert Okwuegbunam in between the 20s if he makes the roster, especially as like a big slot receiver. Go back and look at his other reps in the preseason. He's gotten several reps as basically a big slot receiver in trip sets. So I feel like that's another way that the Denver Broncos could utilize Albert Okwuegbunam. So for me, he's just such a valuable piece to this roster. And if you go and look at my 53-man roster prediction video, I figured out a way to keep both Albert Okwuegbunam as well as Nate Adkins on the active roster. So go check that out. It may involve having to cut another veteran player in the process, But I feel like that's probably the price we're going to have to pay if we want to keep both Albert Okwuegbunam and Nate Adkins on the roster, because Nate Adkins is a dual threat player as a tight end as well as a fullback, and the critical part for Nate Adkins is he's going to be a special teams contributor. And Albert Okwuegbunam, to his credit, had a critical block on Jaleel McLaughlin's punt return, on his big punt return in San Francisco. So I feel like we could potentially use Albert Okwuegbunam on special teams. And if that's the case, that would definitely boost his value for the Denver Broncos. So overall, Broncos country, I personally would not trade Albert Okwuegbunam, but according to Mike Kliss, that still could be a heavy possibility. I know I would not be a fan of that move unless we got something really good in return for him, and even then, it would definitely hurt seeing a player with Albert Okwuegbunam's talent exit the building. So I definitely would not do it, but I'm curious, Broncos country, how do you feel about this news, and what would you do with Albert Okwuegbunam if you were in the position of Sean Payton and George Payton? Would you trade him for draft assets, or would you keep him here and try to utilize that talent here in Denver? Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video, as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are two free and easy ways to show your support. Helps tell YouTube to push us out and helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country, just like you and me. And until next time, guys, this has been another episode of Denver Broncos Syndicate. I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.